Enterprises should think about their data, their sovereignty of data, where they operate, in which countries, what kind of security and compliance policies they need to adhere to. So all of these questions are really important for them, and they can own their data and their inference easily.
I was just going to ask on the regulatory, when you're considering these kind of implementations, and when you're thinking of as a global enterprise, how does the regulatory and compliance come in? You have the EU AI Act that's around the EU.
Yeah.
You have another set of constraints in the US and in different cases. How do you manage that when you're thinking about inference? Is it like data? Is it the same way you're thinking about data flows?
Yeah.
Is it more of who has access? Like, how different is it? Or is it already well established?
It's not well established, but everybody is basically trying to understand. First of all, it's a very slow process of changing of the compliance framework in which you are operating as a company in specific industry. So everybody understands this is a slow process, and they need to work around it, or work not against it, but actually to work in the guardrails that are set by external or internal policies in that particular organization or part of the organization. So the only thing that you can do as a big foundational model provider is to make sure that you comply with these regulations. So you can see that, for example, Anthropic has a HIPAA compliance from recently, which means that the companies that are HIPAA compliant can now use Claude for various reasons. They couldn't use that today. In honesty, there is a lot of shadow use, and everybody is aware of that. But because the fear of missing out, and it's a rightful fear because you don't know if your competitor is doing that. Probably your competitor is doing that. So it's going to be quite shady in the next couple of years until we come to a point where there is a good practice. And also, I don't think that lawyers and advisors are ready to give you any recommendations today. And we can see that speaking with our clients about their AI policies and frameworks in their organizations, you can see that there is a lot of back and forth because they don't understand the space. They don't understand the risk profile.
Where do you think that's heading? Where do you think the legal frameworks, knowing that these models are going to be deployed on the edge or distributed through, and you're going to have now many, many more models that are coming through, it sounds like, because you're going to add this inference on top of the base cognition and training that's on there. Where do you see this heading? Is it something that you're going to have is it going to fall back to like an equivalent of a GDPR for what you're doing in terms of data and compute? Are there going to be other kind of constraints coming in there that says, like, do we open up the black box if that's possible even? Like what are the considerations now that come after you've said, we know what we want to build as a product, and now we want to go out there? How do we not risk our exposure down the line unknowingly?
It's all of these regulatory frameworks exist with a purpose. So we have to go back to understanding the purpose of the framework itself. And what is not breaking the framework itself, we should align to it. What is breaking is the new capabilities that these models are providing, where, for example, you can completely take someone's identity online, like voice, video, everything. You can see that happening even today. So basically, your identity can be easily stolen online. Previously, it was maybe your email, your password, bank account, etc. But now even your face, these kind of things were not possible. At least they were not possible for like a small amount of money, which is actually today. So for these cases that are on the not on the edges, but outside of the first principles on which these regulatory frameworks were actually brought to life, we need to extend them.
Do you think that the first principles are evolving, or are they still valid?
I think that they're valid. I don't know. I don't see Newton's laws changing anytime soon. So let's start from there.
Yeah. At a conference this is 2 years ago, there was a venture that was doing deepfake detection. And they said it's an arms race between getting into deepfakes because of this capability that you mentioned. And asking that CEO, he goes, I go, what's the world look like in 5 years? And he says, we believe we're going to be living in a simulation. It's going to become that good. So in that kind of world, does traceability become a factor when you're building out this inference? Like where would traceability and kind of the ability to audit or log into these things come into play when we're thinking about this kind of development? How is that still very early? It sounds early because there's not been a lot of talk about it, but is that something that's going to emerge because of these?
It's emerging in the last couple of weeks. Basically, all of the foundational models for enterprise use are providing observability, auditability of the data, zero retention policies. So all of the things that you have on the cloud to be compliant with regulatory frameworks of your particular industry are actually coming into play here. They are on just a low level, basically, right now. But given the fact that the development of the software solutions is becoming more rapid, I believe that this is going to be very quickly solved.
So when we're looking at inference enablement, so let's look at a couple of, from a general enterprise level, if you're developing AI-enabled solutions, and you're the CTO of that enterprise, or you're responsible for the AI infrastructure, what's the most important thing that they can think about today as they're looking at these kind of evolution of inference and models, and how should they think today about it?
They should think about the longevity of the solution. So you have point solutions that when you build them, you ship them, deliver them to the site, to whatever site is. Maybe it's a physical thing, maybe it's completely digital, but then it can work like that for the next couple of years, 10 years. You just maintain it and run it. That's easy. But if you have a solution that should compete with a lot of other people on the market, with a lot of other companies on the market, so you're in a competitive market, you need to make sure that the model, you know already that the model that you're using today is already obsolete, because in 3 months from now, the new model is going to come out, and then the new model and the new model. If your architecture is not allowing you to quickly iterate on the models and bring in the new model that is more efficient, less cost, more features, better precision, lower latency, or whatever the metric is important for your use case, then you're going to be in a very bad situation against your competitors. And this is why everybody is fearful, and it's very hard for them to decide, hey, I'm going to bet on this startup with this particular hardware architecture that's going to solve my solution. That's why they're asking from these companies to give them two things. First of all, use case, POC, that it works, that it's far better than other competitors on the market, starting from NVIDIA and everybody else. And then at the same time, they want to make sure that they can implement new model very quickly. And this is why you need that software stack between the hardware accelerator for the AI workloads and actual AI workloads, that in between that is built and should be built by these companies, very good and very efficient. And there is a lack of talent, there is a lack of methodology, and there is a lack of I would say, not foundational knowledge, but actually good practices on how to build this software layer, because we were perfecting a couple of architectures for a number of decades, and now we have what we saw in the last year, or the last 2 years, we have 170 new semiconductor companies popping out. There's a huge amount of money putting into enabling interface on the edge, or interface as a whole, not interface, but inference. But all of these companies are struggling with that software stack that can easily enable their hardware to run the AI workloads. So a new model comes in, that AI workload needs to run on that architecture, ideally with one compile time, and that's it. But that is not the case today. Now it's between 4 weeks and 6 weeks, sometimes 3 months. So by the time you implement the newest model, the new one comes out.
So is there going to be legacy models? And is this something that enterprises would be at risk? Because if a legacy version of a model
Absolutely
gets
because legacy
obsolete,
version, yes, it's not just from the product standpoint; it's a security standpoint as well. You will find out, for example, that model has a security loophole that somebody can utilize. We haven't explored that at all at this point of time. So you are going to be forced, basically, to do something about it, or you're going to build a wall, or you're going to shut down that part of the solution. There's a lot of problems that we don't know that could happen. We can theorize about these problems and try to find a solution for them. But I think that over time, we are going to learn how to basically do that.
If I'm sitting at the board level of an enterprise, what are the questions now the board needs to ask of the CEO and the executive teams when it comes to AI, and they're now proposing new product evolutions and a new strategy, and maybe the strategies of the companies now are evolving, and they're going to be heavily dependent on agentic models. And so in the board's mind, what are the most important questions? Is it financial? Is it are they the same questions as before? Is there an evolution?
I think these are the same questions, but because of the fact that AI is now everywhere and it's palpable, all of the board members can actually touch and feel the AI today through ChatGPT and other tools as well. So when they prepare for the board meeting, they have summarized all of the documents probably. And then they can ask questions about the data in the documents. They don't have to ask analysts. So for them, it's much quicker. So they feel that, oh man, I'm like 10 times more efficient. So why my company is not 10 times more efficient? That's the ultimate question that we have today. Efficiency gains, ROI on the investment to the AI. And they're not shy to invest, but they don't know how the ROI is going to be presented. So they see all of these software companies that are laying off people because they are using code assistants and they are using AI in different parts of software development lifecycle. They see that, they look at from the distance, but they don't understand how to implement that in their own company, which is maybe not a software development company. They don't have too many engineers, but they operate certain processes, how to improve the processes. They don't know where to start. And I think that is creating more problems at the end of the day, because the old way of governing from very high level through financial and organizational levers will need to change even on the board level, especially on the executive level, where you need to feel the AI tools by yourself to be able to understand how these tools and what decisions to make, where these tools are going to help you most making your organization more efficient or create new products or new revenue streams.
So the CFOs actually have to get closer to understanding the nature of the financial construct of what we're doing when we're building new models in that sense. And the old way of kind of looking at cloud costs and other parts that were kind of digestible before, it sounds like there's different sets of financial risks that are introduced.
Absolutely. I think that I don't see CFOs at the moment educated enough to actually make these decisions in a way that is backed by data and long-term thinking.
Does it require a retooling of enterprises now and how they monitor the costs and the precision that it's not just a line item anymore or number of bytes going through cloud storage? Yeah. Like, is it a retooling of the financial kind of backbone as well?
I think so. I think that at the moment, in the next couple of years, cost of AI is going to be huge until it becomes a norm. So everybody works around the norms. They compare themselves to other companies, say how much they're spending on HR per X amount of people. So all of this is somehow gets to a point where all of the companies look like other companies. But when this type of wave and this type of paradigm shift comes in, this is completely new platform. It's a completely new platform that requires rebuild of the infrastructure. Like when internet came in, it's a rebuild of the infrastructure and everything around it. So marketing completely changed. The channels where you place the marketing money are not on the TV and radio or newspaper. They are on the internet. Now this is changing and going into the foundational models and completely different pathways and interactions with the customers. So if you see this as a complete platform shift, then you have to change the way how you operate, how you structure the company, what kind of roles you have in the company, what is acceptable for you on the line item. When you think about it, when you think about IT infrastructure and ecosystems, you need to think about the way how you implement different tools. And if you are going to rely on the enterprise software as a service tools more or less, my opinion is that finally business can get what they need and what they want.
So a couple of parts in there. The first one is when you're building out these products at the enterprise level, some of these enterprises are having their own internal development teams now. They're playing with tools, and then they're going to come out with a product in there. And then in the end, that's going to have some cost line to make sure that product. But it's also going to have other considerations like security, the privacy stuff, and kind of drift and model efficiency that comes in there. So what are the right questions that a CTO or a CIO or a CFO ask when they're doing these internal developments and they have to think about what their products are looking like in the open?
I think that's becoming fairly easy because you have APIs now that are defined to the foundational models if you use them, and then you can see how much of the tokens you are using per session, per user, etc. So you can average it out. You can see through the POC very easily how much you're consuming, and you can extrapolate that. And then you are making a decision. Okay, do I want to have my private cloud? And I think this is now becoming a more viable question than any time because the cost of inference is huge. But then on the private cloud side, I need to build it, run it, operate it. So 3 new types of companies are going to emerge. 3 new types of companies. Not just the providers of the hardware by themselves, but somebody needs to put that hardware in the rack, in the machine, in a data center that is local to that particular company. Somebody needs to run the software stack on top of it, the security, the compliancy, and everything else. And then somebody needs to also maintain it and run it on the longer time. So you have three types of companies that are going to emerge, and then you're going to have one company that's going to do all that for you. So it's a typical cycle, it's a paradigm shift, new platforms, new companies are going to emerge for sure. And at the end of the day, we are going to end up in a cycle of the maturity, or the part of the cycle when we are mature as a platform, as a technology, and then we can easily plan and build plans for the 5-year, 10-year. Now you can make plans for 6 months at most.
I tell you, it sounds like an extremely exciting phase. There's been all this kind of semi-doom and gloom about AI kind of absorbing everything, but there's this whole new set of skills and capabilities that are coming and emerging and are required now to really kind of meet the potential of what these new models can do on that side.
Yeah. I think that going back to the beginning of the conversation, this is a very exciting time where people that genuinely have that curiosity in themselves are going to be very valuable. And we need really to think about every individual today and rethink where these individuals can actually help in the organization. And I think that every organization have these people that are doing something that is not like their main job, not in their job description, but they genuinely understand the potential of the new platform that is being developed right now. So if I look from the HR standpoint, or not human resources, but human potential standpoint, it is becoming ever more important today to find the right people and then bring them to the surface to help others get along. And this is something that HTEC has been doing over and over again. And now we have a number of groups and people that are working on different projects that are not consolidated in one place, but actually this diversity is bringing a lot of knowledge into the organization. And now we are in the position to really meaningfully help other organizations understand how to cut through all of this fog and actually create solutions that are viable for the next couple of years and that will bring them ROI.
Darko, I'd like to ask a little bit about hardware providers and their relation to inference. And so we know there's tiers of hardware providers. There's NVIDIA and AMD, and there's others, and then there's maybe new chips coming out on this. But how do they affect what others will do with inference? From looking at it, others building on top of their platforms, and how much do they themselves would want to do to optimize inference? Is there a tension there, or is it compatible, or how do you look at that play between the two?
Yeah, first of all, the biggest competitive edge of NVIDIA is CUDA. So basically the software stack that they have on top of the chips. They don't have the most efficient chips for either training or inference today, because these chips are built for graphics. They're not built for models. And you will basically see new chips that are specialized for AI models coming out. This is why there is a quote-unquote partnership between Grok and NVIDIA, but actually NVIDIA acquired Grok and their technology, because this chip is a specialized chip for AI workloads. So if you look from that angle, the software stack that is sitting on top of the hardware accelerator for AI inference is hugely important, because it's allowing you to efficiently use all of the hardware resources that you have on that particular chip for that particular use case, industry, or particular model. So in order for this to happen, you need to have a very well done software stack that is going to allow two things. to run the models efficiently and to allow external developers to develop features on top of the models or to develop new specialized models that are going to be run on these hardware accelerators.
Does NVIDIA benefit from having others build attachments to CUDA? Is it their walled garden, or is it just something that every chip maker is going to have to build their own CUDA?
Well, every chip maker is going to have to build their own at the moment because you don't have at least a portion of that stack done. And every hardware is built because it's specific for a purpose. So if you have differences in hardware architectures, if you take, for example, let's draw a parallel between x86 architecture. You have a number of different providers, but let's say Intel and AMD are the biggest ones. And you have instruction set that is the same for a number of years. And you have a compiler that is perfected over decades. And now you have all of these different architectures with different accelerators, hardware accelerators on the chip, in the design, embedded into the design. So you need to make a software that is going to allow developer to build the solution in the already established software libraries and stacks and compile that to that specific hardware architecture. So allowing a vast majority of developers to use these chips. In the ideal world, you build a solution and then you say, okay, I want to run this solution on that hardware or this hardware or that hardware. Today, that's not possible.
Do you think that'll happen?
Well, to the certain extent. So if you take this software stack that sits on top of the hardware, you have some 7 layers today. Maybe 5 of these layers are going to be done, but these 2 layers that are very close to the hardware will be done only by these companies, which is the situation basically today, even with these other very matured architectures.
Darko, just to follow up on the cost impact of building on top of these models and thinking about inference, how much is the capital CapEx versus the OpEx meaningful? Is it a big deal, or is it just that, is there a baseline on it, and can they improve? Like, how big?
Well, I think that CapEx is negligible compared to OpEx that you're going to have when you deliver AI native solutions into the whole organization. And everybody is hoping that the price per token is going to go down, that the latency is going to go down. And this is actually happening. But the problem is that the demand is even higher. The expectations are higher. And your competition is going to use the latest models. So you need to think about constantly investing into building on and updating the models, and then also looking at your solution. Because if you change the model inside of your solution, it's not plug and play. It's going to give you different results. You have to tune it differently, etc. So basically, there is constant investment into the maintenance, at least maintenance of these solutions, but then also running and operating them.
How does inference play with lock-in? So if an enterprise chooses a foundational model as its core, and that model just becomes way more expensive, and they say, I want to switch to a different foundational model now, how hard is that?
It's hard. Today, it's hard, but I think that over time, there are going to be solutions that are going to make it more plug and play. Because you know yourself, the same prompt in Grok, Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini is going to give you different results. Yeah. So if you implement that in a solution, you get different results that are not expected, then who knows what happens at the end. So
Well, even in the same prompt at the same model, fresh can produce
Yes.
different results.
Yeah,
And I think that
absolutely,
has to
yes.
do with thermal effects, among other
Yeah.
things, and probabilities. Darko, when we're thinking about cloud and kind of infrastructure decision makers in various industries like telco and healthcare and financial services, are decision making the same in those industries when they're thinking about inference and how they invest and how much that maybe OpEx is more critical of a cost in one industry versus another? Or is it principally the same?
Principally, I think it's 100% the same, with the exception of telcos, because telcos have a unique position that they are next to their customers. They have cell towers, they have data centers, they have networking done, they have power distribution, they have also availability backup systems. So all of this infrastructure is really important if you want to deliver the inference where demand is. And I think that they have a unique opportunity to actually bring those data centers closer to the customers right now. If they miss this wave, then there is no telco anymore with all of the Starlink and all of the other solutions, basically. So I think that they're going to be decimated.
Do you think that's actually a big opportunity if they do capture it?
I think this is the only opportunity that they have, because everything that they have been selling up until now is going to become commoditized. They missed the cloud wave. They made a mistake with the IoT wave. And then the only thing that they have now is the network. And if you have Starlink and the like competition that is in the orbit, and you have connection from your mobile phone to Starlink, that there's no telcos. There's no value proposition basically to have them.
Do you think they're in a strong position to then play with the edge in the kind of distributed area in their own way?
Absolutely. Not just to play. I think that they have a unique opportunity to bring the inference closer to demand. I think that telcos are in a great position, and there's going to be a lot of local companies that are going to bring this to the edge, that are going to bring inference where the demand is.
It's exciting for telcos. Darko, there is an immense amount of change coming in with all these new models, from the hardware level and inference to everything else that goes on in the enterprise. Is the nature of the engineer changing? How is it changing? What is needed now in this new wave of kind of technology progress?
I think that being able to make decisions and judgment calls is becoming more important today than before, because when you had the bottleneck in writing code, you had to do a lot of preparatory work around the people that are writing code at the end. So you prepare the specification for them, you prepare test cases, if their code is going to run. If you look from that perspective, you have so many things that you're doing around it for the people that are, at the end of the day, writing the code. In not such a big amount of cases, these people are really tackling the real problems. If you look at the span of our engineers that we have, more than 100 projects that we are currently running and building, how many algorithms you are actually developing during the day or inventing? You're not. But today, with AI, with this new platform, with this new shift that is coming in, you really need people that can produce new innovation. The people that can really think outside of the box, that can understand the full stack of capabilities that these new inference machines and new platforms are giving you. So the people that are used to have their own labs to tinker with different solutions or build their own breadboards and stuff like that, these people are destined to be the most valuable people in the organizations today to really give you the competitive edge.
Darko, thank you very much. And this was another episode of HTEC Today with Darko Tadorovic, CTO of HTEC Group. The inference space is exciting. It is growing. It is complicated, and it is very critical for any enterprises that are looking at deploying generative or agentic solutions and being competitive in the market today. Thank you.
Thank you.